Hi everyone and welcome to day 5 of Cavemas. For those of you that celebrate, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas Day today. I'm struggling a bit with the hat today. I feel like the ears are really, should these not be down here? I don't think I can fold this up either. Oh, maybe I can. Okay, because yeah, really that needs to be down there then, doesn't it? Anyway, I digress. Today's video is another book review. We haven't done one of those for a while. And the book that we're using today was actually gifted to me by someone out there in the cave community. And the book in question is Art Starts With a Line. And this has been put together by an illustrator called Erin McManus. And she has tried to combine lettering, journal and drawing aspects all together in one book. So we are going to delve into this a little bit today, see what it's all about and see if it is worth our money. So get your bingo cards ready, guys. I hope you're all still playing along. We're doing good. We're going to keep raising some money for the charity, especially since today is Christmas Day. So we're going to go to top down view and we're going to get stuck into this book and see what it's all about. So here we are. I have been looking forward to this for a while. It's so freaking cute. Look at this book. And you can, it's very, very obvious that the author is in fact an illustrator just by the outside cover. So it is a soft cover book, slightly larger than A4. And it is called Art Starts With a Line. So it's described on the front cover here as a creative and interactive guide to the art of line drawing. So if we come in the front here, there's different sections all listed in this table of contents page here. And there's an introduction and also a little bit about how to use this book. Basically what Erin is encouraging you to do is to doodle in the book as much as possible, but also take the elements that you learn from the things in this book and apply them to other things to increase your drawing repertoire. So the last paragraph says, by the time you've worked your way through this book, you'll feel more confident about incorporating drawing into your everyday life and more self-assured about illustrating complex items and objects, and hopefully you will have a lot of fun. So this first section here talks about a little bit about fundamentals actually. And one thing I did notice is that she seems to lean heavily on Tombow products. Tombow products are not cheap. There are plenty of alternatives, but in saying that, there are cheap things she uses like Bic ballpoint pens. I would take all this with a pinch of salt in terms of the actual items she's using, but it's a very good demonstration with nice clear photographs of the types of implements that she's using. She then goes on to talk about colour tools. Again, Tombow features quite heavily here as well, and a few extras that you may want to consider. I would say that none of these things are mandatory, apart from having an ink pen and something to draw on, personally. The information is there for you all the same. So we've got basic drawing techniques as well. I mean, it's very, very brief, but it's there. And she shows you different lines and textures and things, which really I think you should be doing yourself. And there's this section on shading as well. It doesn't go into a lot of detail though. There's no explanation as to why we're doing this. It's just a method you can use. So it is touching the surface there. But if we come over the page, we're still talking about fundamentals here, but she actually goes into things in colour as well. So techniques with markers, coloured pencils, watercolour, acrylic, and mixing them together, which there is, although this is great information, I think it's too many subjects and too little detail. There's a page on each, but it's literally a couple of paragraphs. And while it might be enough to get you started if you're an absolute beginner, I don't know how much value I would find in some of these. So the basic techniques section, it does seem to be really brief, and I feel as if she's tried to cover too much. You're better to cover a few things specifically and expand on them a little bit rather than try to cover everything briefly. And I think from what we can gather from this book to begin with, really we should be looking at a line work. That's kind of the idea, I'm sure. But interesting. Now even the next interesting thing as well, there is a section on working digitally. And some of this information is quite helpful. And she seems to spend quite a lot of time on this. So this indicates to me that she may be more of a digital artist, or at least she cleans up her work digitally. But there's This is, there seems to be an imbalance here, you know, that we're talking lots and lots of pages, digital colour. There's loads in this section and she goes into this quite specifically, whereas with traditional media it's literally a couple of paragraphs. I'm not so sure about this section. I think if you're into working digitally this would be quite helpful, but again, if you're just starting out, are you going to start digitally or are you going to start with a pen and paper? That's purely a preference thing. So the first section here is borders and banners. A lot of this book is actually weighted towards journalers and hand letterers as well, so that, you know, this section was definitely going to be in here. And there's some absolutely gorgeous little tutorials here on doing these borders and banners. I used to bullet journal a lot before the Cave took over, and I would have loved this you know, like 5 or 6 years ago. So there's lots of different designs and she's given you a massive practice area as well. And I love these books that have got these little sections where you can just doodle in them. I think it's really good to have an interactive book, because after all, you've got something tangible in your hand. Why not make it so you can draw in it if that's going to be your subject matter? So I love this. I also love the fact as well that she has actually put these little corner borders on the pages too. It's so cute. And there's a section here on advanced borders as well, and she's showing you how to use them. So that's really, really nice. And there's a section on the corner border accents that we were talking about there as well for you to look and copy. And then she moves on to banners as well. And I think this is a great section as well, because there's very good explanations as to how we're actually putting these banners together and the technique that you're using. And it makes you think of it in like a 3D perspective. And again, a huge practice area, which is great. And here we have more banners too. And again, lettering, this was going to be part of it because she is a great letterer. Now, while this is something that isn't particularly appealing to me, I'm not really into hand lettering. I like the format and I like the way that it's laid out as well, this section. And again, we've got space to practice things too. And then we have this little section on illuminated letters or drop caps, depending on what you want to call them. And again, there's some lovely examples here. And so for this lesson here, what she's doing is she's making you combine the last couple of aspects that have been shown in the book into one. So it's a lettered quote with a banner. You can incorporate your lettering and your banner, and maybe even some of the border elements as well. And again, you've got a lovely little box to do that in. Okay, so moving on from that sort of lettering stroke journaling type stuff, we're moving into more of the drawing aspect of the book. So you can see there, that's us up to page 49. So there is quite a substantial chunk of this book dedicated to digital and also to the hand lettering aspect of line work. The rest of this book, which you can see is a substantial chunk, there's nearly 130 pages, so the majority of the book is focused towards actually drawing things. So the first section is leaves and flowers, and this is something that I think is universal. It's easy to begin learning and it's incorporated into a lot of stuff. Just look at the banners and the borders that we're just talking about. Flowers and leaves are there everywhere all the time. This is also obviously a very popular subject for colouring books as well. Be able to draw your own botanicals is great, and there's loads and loads of stuff in here. We have complex leaf variations as well as the simple ones, and again different designs to try down in the bottom part here. And we're talking about a complex fern as well. So the same idea with flowers as well, and obviously because it's a more complicated item, it's a more complicated tutorial as well, but this is really nice. And I like that these are step by step, and they're very step by step. So now we're talking about building up here. So basically putting together what you've learned to create. So you've got leaves here, we've got some simpler flower shapes, and we've got more complicated flower shapes as well. And again, some more examples there for you to try out for yourself. And notice that in this section there isn't much room to try out in the book. I suppose you would be encouraged to use a sketchbook at this point as well. So there's also a section on tropical plants as well, which I really like, and I love that the first one's a monstera because they're the most interesting leaves to draw. And that was the first leaf that I painted as well in watercolour. I'd followed a tutorial, and they're great fun to paint, they really are. And then we've got some winter plants, like we've got holly leaves and mistletoe, how exciting. And we've got some desert plants as well. And Jem's favourite, we've got some trees also. We've got a small section here as well on modern stylised flowers. So this is really talking about an illustrative preference or someone's particular art style, which obviously in this case is Erin's. And it's quite nice that she's included a little bit in that, and this kind of encourages you to like, find your own style a little bit. So we have an exercise here, and this is basically to incorporate everything. It's a terrarium, so we'll fill it with leaves and all the rest of it and actually make a finished picture, which is nice too. Okay, the next section is architecture and city life, and again this seems to feature quite heavily in Erin's illustrations, so it makes sense that this would be in here. So we've got an exercise here on a city skyline, and again the information is very specific, and there's these large scale drawings which are really helpful if you're not used to drawing things like that, and certainly cityscapes can be quite complicated and quite daunting, so the fact that it's in a lot of detail here, you know, and you can really see it, you know, it's not like a teeny wee thumbnail in the corner. I really like that as well, and she's also shown you the inked version. So you've got lots of clear reference there. An exercise on a basic skyscraper. And this is probably my favourite one, is the city home. And she is encouraging you to use your own reference photos here, but she's actually breaking down the structural steps of drawing it. But it doesn't go into the specifics of the detail here. Erin is expecting you to rely on the photograph, which is fairly inconsistent. You know, we go from this to this, and this is assuming that you're just copying from a photograph, and I don't like that aspect of it. So we've got a coffee house here as well, and we're talking about distinctive architecture and iconic landmarks, so this is kind of following on from the last section. This is, I mean, like the Eiffel Tower is a really complicated structure, and she doesn't do much to explain other than the basic shape, because we go from this to this, which even for me, like I can see the way it's been put together, but this is not enough information to tell us that. And we've got Big Ben here as well. And basically the message that keeps repeating across all of these is use your reference, use your reference, use your reference. Drawing circles on different planes, that's not straightforward, that's really difficult to get correct. I would have expected a little bit of information there, and there just isn't anything. Okay, Empire State Building is a little bit more straightforward because it's very linear. And she's got one on Forbidden City. I'm talking about the roofs. She loves the roofs to draw as well. And the Taj Mahal. Okay. This is the illustration. I think this is similar to what's on the front cover. Yeah, it's not the same, but it's similar. And she's talking about a row of Amsterdam homes here. And again, not much detail on the decorative elements. Sydney Opera House, Colosseum, the cathedral as well. Like, this is amazing. Like, what an amazing picture. But okay, we've got a little bit on street signs as well. And again, this harks back to Erin's skill in lettering as well, and combining these decorative elements like such as this with actual lettering as well. And this is like a little bit of mini tutorials here. Creative exercise of a storefront. So again, pulling together the elements that you've learned in the section. So this next section is animals and insects, so something that's a bit more familiar to me personally. And she's gone through several different animals, and again, it's like little mini tutorials. So other than copying directly from her tutorials, which is what they're supposed to be for, there is a lot of copying involved, but there's not really a lot of explanation as to why you're drawing things the way you're drawing them, which can sometimes lead you down the path of being stuck drawing the same things. It's all very well saying you can apply these principles to other things, but in order to do that, you have to understand why you're doing it. Like if we think about the hind legs, the structure of a hind leg of a cat and a dog is very similar, and it's not jointed the same way as a human leg. So unless you explain that quadrupeds' back leg construction is slightly different, you know, it might be 4 or 5 animals down the line before you realise that, oh, look, a horse is the same as a dog, it's just longer. You know, it's important to explain that, and that element is missing throughout this book, the explanation part. But these illustrations, if you do want to learn things, like see if you were doing this for like journaling and things, or you were taking on like an illustrative cutesy style, these drawings are a great place to start for you. I really like the horse one here. I like the starting structure, and there's every now and then there's just little things that she mentions, and I wish she'd done this with all of the tutorials. Ink the outline of the horse. Notice how the back arch is parallel to the belly. That's an observation that not everyone would pick up on straight away. How the backside is rounded and how elegant and curved the neck is. So this is what I'm saying, like that kind of explanation, it's not huge, it's not complicated, but that's what helps people with their observation skills when they're learning to draw. If you are an experienced artist in drawing animals, you're going to know all this. You're not going to be doing a tutorial like this. But for someone like me who doesn't know anything about drawing architecture and buildings, I could have done with that type of explanation in the section on buildings, and it's just not there. So again, we've got some simple tutorials here, butterflies and beetles, which are really nice as well. And she's got a little monkey as well. The observation is monkeys are pretty hairy. Well, that depends on the monkey. Some monkeys are hairier than others, just saying. Look at the sea turtle. Oh my god, it's freaking adorable. And there's a section here on everyday life. We've got umbrellas, teapots and cups and things in the kitchen, books, picture frames. And again, it's the same sort of formula throughout. Heels and boots, which I thought was a really odd one. And a chair, and a table. And then this practice area. And then there's a page about the artist. So for me, I'm a little bit confused about this book. I think that the introductory part tries to cover too many things and doesn't do it in enough detail. I think that the sections that cover specific subject matter are good. I like them, but there isn't enough detail in terms of teaching people why they're drawing what they're drawing. And that's that's the step that's missing. Anybody can copy from a reference, and the observation skills when you are drawing get better the more that you do it. But people look for guidance and help in books and on the internet because they need to know why it's happening or have something pointed out to them specifically, like the fact that the back and the belly of the horse, those lines are parallel. Like, unless someone points that out to you and you put that in your head as a rule, you're only going to find that out by doing it a couple of times and getting to that realisation. So I have really mixed feelings about this book. I think it's a lovely book if you're looking for an exercise or something to do, particularly if you lean towards more of the hand lettering. I think it's very good. And there's some things that it would be nice to learn to draw, but I don't think this is a book that's really going to help you to learn to draw, if that makes sense. I don't even know if that makes sense. I know what I'm trying to say here. I don't think it's helping you lay down the fundamentals, because nearly every exercise is take a reference image, copy this bit, do this bit, and then ink it. There's not enough specifics. I feel like this is a very surface tutorial book, which is such a shame because I really had high hopes for it. I feel this book would have been better if Erin had focused on one particular aspect and use that aspect to teach all of these things. So especially the architecture section, because it's something that she seems to be very good at. Why not use that as the focus for a book and have a section on decorative elements and have a section on gardens, you know, like maybe vines that come up, and then you could introduce your floral elements that way. And I think if they had reduced the subject matter and expanded out a little bit better, then this could have been a really, really good book. So if you're looking for surface exercises, then yes, absolutely. If you want to learn the fundamentals and have a book that's going to help you on your drawing journey, this is not the book for you. Having said that, though, there is lots to do in here, and most of these elements you might not want to draw the Colosseum very often, to be fair, unless you're going to go down that route specifically. But the likes of the botanicals, the animals, and even some of the things in the everyday objects section are surely going to come in handy, you know, drawing coffee cups and teapots and things. So there is some use to be had out of this book. Now, I didn't pay for this book, as I mentioned at the start of the video. This was gifted to me. The recommended retail price on the back is $12.99 in the UK. So that's $20 US and $26 Canadian, it says on the back here. I don't think that's a lot of money to pay for an instructional book like this. It's more to be aware of what the content is. And I can understand the concept and the fact that like, they've tried to keep this simple so that it's not intimidating, and that's why the tutorials are very, very basic, bare bones steps, but they're just a wee bit too bare bones for my liking. So that is Art Starts With a Line. I hope this information has been useful to you, and this is helping you make a judgment as whether this is something that would be up your street or not. If you are looking to get into illustration, I actually think this would be a very helpful book, particularly the section on digital art as well. Most work is done digitally now, let's face it, or it's done traditionally and then it's finished off digitally. So there is value to be had out of this book, but just not in the traditional let's learn to draw or let's learn line work sense. So that concludes day 5 of Cavemas. And I will see you back here if you wish to join me for another day tomorrow. Remember to keep filling in your bingo cards, there's prizes to be won, and enjoy the rest of your day. Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate Christmas. I know some of you would have been celebrating yesterday. For those of you in the UK and I think the US as well that celebrate on the 25th, I hope you're all having a very Merry Christmas and you're getting joy from this festive period. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye bye for now.